have to look up at the stars. No, 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 no.
Come take a look at my dream world.
Tonight. You don't have to look up at the stars.
Chat, if you wanna come get it, then come for it. I'm so clean, my kick's nice, I'm Chuck Norris. Minute made the beat bounce, had to jump on it. Run for it, run, Gump Forrest Gump like hollow pumps, you gotta jump. No trouble, no double, I got a stunt. You don't have to look up at the stars. Make one wish, you're looking at a star. Swag so fresh, you can put it in the jar. And the way I change gear, you can put me in the car. I remember when me and Seif used to sneak in every concert door. Now I got my feet in. Every day is Gift Friday, no weekend.
You don't have to look up at the stars.
Welcome back, everyone, to your favorite live sports show. That is indeed hashtag this just in. I know Blaine and TV are looking at me weird, like, hey, what about our own shows? But that's why we brought them on to our own show. So first, Blaine Spencer of The Final Whistle. What's going on, Blaine?
Not much, Justin. Always a pleasure to come on and join you guys as well as TV. Always good to be on the show. Likewise, so.
Yeah. I have bring basketball knowledgeable people because this can't be talking emotion. That's why we left Germ off the show. Just kidding, Germ.
Oh no.
TV, it's been
Nah, that's more of a, yeah,
shots
right.
early. And then Thomas from TV on basketball. It has been way too long. TV, what's been going on?
It's been too long, man. I know you've been wanting to do some NBA shows for a minute, and I've been trying to delay it, but this time, talking Milwaukee Bucks, had to come on the show for this one.
And that's right. We are indeed talking Milwaukee Bucks basketball and only Milwaukee Bucks basketball, because as much as Giannis would like to fool the public, this season was indeed an absolute failure. Just
Really?
the sixth first seed in NBA playoffs history to have lost in the first round. And gentlemen, would you know it is the first one not to have won at least 2 games? But I'm already giving away my answer. So Blaine, do you believe that this season was indeed a failure, or are you like Giannis and saying there's never a failure in sports?
Well, I mean, I think Giannis's answer kind of gives everyone the perspective of what everyone defines as a failure or whatnot, right? It keeps that open mind. But, you know, for me, we're fans. We also are sports connoisseurs, or we like to think we are. And I would have to define this Milwaukee Bucks season as a failure. You're the number 1 seed. You're trying to get a better grasp of what's actually unfolding with this squad. And you're trying to kind of relay what this series really unfolded, right? Giannis didn't really play for 3 games, so that's already a hindrance in and of itself in this Miami series. But you're a 1 seed and you can't get the job done. I have to say it's a definite failure. You're a team that was the perennial front runner to win the Eastern Conference, and you no-showed.
And the reason I know that is because I went to Vegas and put money on them to win it all. And
Oh, so you just have a personal vendetta.
wow.
This isn't actually you having some insight.
yeah, I took my $50 and oh, well, it's gone. So Neil, I kind of feel like I shouldn't even bother to ask you because you and I are built from the same cloth. But I'm gonna still ask all the same. Was this a failure, or are you siding with Giannis?
Well, I can be somewhere in between. I can straddle the fence here, because obviously everything Blaine said makes sense, and I know your take already. It is a failure if you're your number 1 seed and you have that pedigree of championship aspirations and stuff like that. But personally, I think that given what we would have seen, Blaine mentioned that Giannis missed 3 games throughout the season. There were injuries, and for some reason, even though the roster was slightly different, it's kind of still was the same. So from a standpoint of getting the job done, yes, they were the number 1 seed, but the East, especially the top of the East, is kind of a little different than it was years before, right? We'll see what 76ers are doing. We see how Boston is slowly improving and getting better every season. Miami always has that dog in them, so they're going to always be there and thereabouts. I think that while you can look at the season as a failure, I still think, as Giannis said, there are things that you can learn from it. One of them is maybe Coach Budenholzer was not the fit for them. Another one is probably some other moves that needed to be made. Maybe they had to lose like this so that they can make certain decisions and changes. So if you're looking at the nuts and bolts of it, the ones and zeros, the bottom line, yes, it is a failure. But if you're looking at, I think, especially the story of Giannis being the front runner and the superstar of the Milwaukee Bucks, that is a team that they've gotten to the mountaintop already, and with the right pieces and right coach can do it again. I think this is just a challenge or an obstacle in their way. So, if you had to tie me down to thing, you know what? I know how the rest of this can go, so I can say no, it's not a failure. Put that in stone.
You're just doing that. Just doing that to be a contrarian.
Hey, man.
TV. Failure or Giannis?
I appreciate Giannis for trying to take the positive route, and it's good to see some sort of optimism, a way that he was going about it. It was like very much like the end of a Disney movie, saying, you know what, we didn't get it at the end, but we were able to, but we can still move forward, we could still power through. But from the
a
outside
Disney movie
looking
called
in, let's be
Race?
honest, it was like basically, but also from the outside looking in, it was an absolute failure. You have a team here in the Milwaukee Bucks who are not getting any younger. You got Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, and Brook Lopez all on short-term deals at this point. So you're wasting another year of their primes or whatever left they have at their prime. And like people said, they mentioned before, they were the odds-on favorite. I had them going to the finals since the beginning of the season. And what happened? They got absolutely demolished, I would say, by the Miami Heat, but with Jimmy Butler. They got basically torn apart by one guy. Everything that could have went wrong. Giannis got injured. The so-called best, I still consider him one of the best guard defenders in the league, and Drew Holiday got absolutely cooked. Everything that went wrong could have possibly gone wrong. And for a team with so much expectations, for a team with the pedigree they've had and the success they've had these last few years to go out, they did. It was just absolutely horrible. But again, some positives of this, just like Neil said, it made them take a good look in the mirror to say, you know what, this roster is not good enough. We need to make some changes. You need to go down in dramatic fashion in order to really take a look at yourself and see what really needs to be changed. I think changes that need to be made, such as getting this team younger to help fit with Giannis' timeline, the change at the coaching position, which was probably needed for a while, but it feels like because of the championship, they were able to hold on to Budenholzer for a bit. But at the end of the day, yes, it was an absolute failure for a season, but I think long term it really shook up the Milwaukee Bucks, and it's now making them think, okay, what do we need to change so that this won't happen again?
Back my $50, Budenholzer. I would like back my $50. But
Money
if
burn.
we're being honest here, if it burned, beyond a personal bias vendetta here, it was an absolute failure. As I said at the top of the show, they are the 6th first seed to bow out in the first round. At least the previous 5 won 2 games. They won 1. Granted, Giannis was hurt. Now, I want to get to Giannis, actually, because his explanations are not going to fly with me here. First, as you know, in my previous life being a reporter, right? You can't tell me about if every year a reporter doesn't get a promotion, if that seems as a failure, because a reporter's job is not to get a promotion. A reporter's job is to get interviews and breaking stories. If you don't get those are failures. Then to bring up the Michael Jordan line, I saw him very, very sneaky there, Giannis, but no. Now telling me Mike only won 6 titles in 15 years, if the other 9 are failures, no, Giannis. Because what you're missing is that those 9 years, 8 of those 9 years, Mike was not expected to win the title. He was not viewed as a contender. 8 of those 9 years that he would have lost in the playoffs, or he didn't make the playoffs, the Chicago Bulls were not viewed, and the Washington Wizards in those years were not viewed as a title contender. The only year you can have a realistic argument of saying that Mike failed was the first comeback year when they got beaten in the second round by the Magic. Outside of that, Mike, none of those other years you can seriously say the Chicago Bulls were a contender.
Wait, hold on.
Like,
Wait, yeah, I got a rebuttal.
Hold on.
You go
but not
first,
a
Neil.
contender. But they were not expected to win in any of those years that they lost, other than the year that they lost 4-2 to the Orlando Magic. Other than that, like when those series they lost to the Detroit Pistons, they were the underdog.
Oh,
when
you
they
mean the
lost to Boston Celtics.
you mean the ones that were that they lost, and because that second three-peat now, I don't know anybody that had any other team to win but the Chicago Bulls.
That's what I'm saying. So like you can't. He brought up the times that Mike lost, but you can't bring in the times that Mike lost, other than again that Orlando series, because they were not expected to win. So you're not going to look at those seasons as failures. So just like how last season, when Milwaukee lost to Boston in the second round, no one in their right mind would look at that season as a failure, because A, Boston had the higher seed, the home court advantage, and B, Chris Middleton did not play. So you would not say Milwaukee had realistic championship expectations in that second round series. So you can't look at that as a failure. But when you enter the playoffs with the best record overall, not just in the Eastern Conference, with the higher seed, and you're playing a Miami Heat team, that is without Tyler Hero, then goes down without Victor Oladipo, and you win just one game as the odds-on favorite, not to win the series, the odds-on favorite to win the title, and you only win one game in the first round. There's no coaching of the language to put this. This was an abject failure. Go ahead, Blaine.
Justin, I just want to throw a question to you now, because you brought in the Mike part of Giannis's speech. How many years would you say of Giannis's career in Milwaukee is then defined as a failure then? How many
I would
years?
say this year.
Just only this
I would
year,
say
or
this-
would you say because there was other years that they were the best team in the Eastern Conference, but people would say that they were the front runner and that they so-called failed, right? So would you say that it's just this year? So, because then that would if you're just saying this year, that enforces Giannis's argument based off of saying, like you just said, Mike only had the 1 year that you could arguably say. So you're saying this year's his only thing. So he really hasn't had a failure up until then.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. It's only this year in my estimation, and that's why I found it funny that he didn't view this season as a failure either. Go ahead, Tomas.
I was going to say maybe 2019. 2019 was the one that I would say that maybe would consider a failure.
What happened?
That's when they were
2018
were
and
up
2019. 2018.
Yes, when they're up 2-0 against your Raptors. Yeah, that. So these two seasons. But I would not go down the route that every season Giannis didn't win, that he was a failure, because all of those other seasons he was expected to win, other than 2019 and again this season. So Neil, then, considering that we kind of all agree that the Bucks kind of fell short of their overall goal, at least making the second round for sure, what exactly went wrong against this short-handed Miami team?
Well, Giannis got injured. I mean, when you look at when you look at beating you're the Milwaukee Bucks, you have to play teams. I don't know if I want my affectionately named Greek freak to be out. I mean, let's be honest, right? If Giannis were able and ready, he would have torn the interior of Miami apart. So you have Brook Lopez, you have Michael was it Portis? You have Bobby Portis, Bobby Portis Jr. You have their bigs who are fine, they're good, but they all are to complement Giannis Antetokounmpo. So you didn't have anybody to really contest with Bam Adebayo down low. I mean, he was a terror. You had Jimmy Butler. I cannot say enough about Jimmy Butler. He's every season making a case for being, like, every year he's just going up and up for me in terms of being one of the best players in the NBA that is just so underrated. I mean, he leaves it all on the floor, and I think there was a game he had 50 or something like that. Like Jimmy Butler is really, really good at basketball, and when you add to that, he has the heart, passion, and soul. Is almost to will his team to success. Because you look at Tyler Hero missed some time too.
The entire series, basically.
Right, he missed. Right, he missed it some time too. That other boy, Duncan Robinson, I don't know where he is. he could as well have been injured. You have Kyle Lowry, who, like him or not, I know Tomasi could speak to this. Kyle Lowry, love him or hate him, he's not somebody that you would say is feared or is going to be a killer. But I think what went wrong with Milwaukee, back to the question, is that you essentially needed Chris Middleton to lead your team, and he's not that. He is not the person to score in bunches and buckets to lead you to success. He's not a leader of men, and he is not someone that, even because there are some leaders that are not vocal, they silently lead you by their work ethic or by things they do on the court, etc. Like, look at Devin Booker. Whew. Yeah, just calm down. I just wanted to bring him as a reference, but he was really good last night. I don't think he had anything to say to his team. He just led by his play on the court, his hustle, right? So I think a lot went wrong, and I think it goes back to the first question we were talking about in terms of some of the pieces that are needed. They are getting older. I think age kind of killed them a bit because the Heat are a younger team, and then they are a smaller team. And even though they're smaller, they still can out-rebound your team. So I think a combination of that, and then of course you had your perimeter defensive all-world player in what's the boy name? Oh my gosh, name Drew, right?
Drew Holiday.
Drew Holiday, right? Drew Holiday. He's somehow, I don't know if he was injured or if he just was like Aiton, mentally unfocused. He just disappeared in terms of being that defensive stopper. So I mean,
Drew Holiday is just a bit.
Go ahead, say again.
No, I was just about to say Jimmy Butler is just a bigger player.
Basically.
Yeah. So I mean,
that's what you admitted to.
And that's the thing, right? I'll be honest and say, if I were a team in the East, I would not want to see the Heat. Simply because even though on paper you can look at that team and say, we got them outsized, we can outscore them, we can outpace them, etc. They have, and I don't like, these sort of vague words and terms, right? The intangibles and the X factor. They legit have it. They have, for some reason, they have the will. When you have Bam Adebayo, you have somebody as fiery as Kyle Lowry, and you have Jimmy Butler leading your team. It's kind of like you want to play better basketball. You want to make the hustle plays. You want to like leave it all on the floor. So, and that's dangerous because then it leaves you on any given night. You can hit it like from 0-0 clocks at 12. We can see what can happen. So, I think what went wrong against Miami is just they needed to get younger. They needed some pieces. This team is pretty much the same team we've seen in the last few seasons, even though they've made minor tweaks here and there. Giannis was injured. Budenholzer is tired at the helm. And let's say Miami did play a very good series. Shoot, Spoelstra coached a very good series as well. So, And again, this is why I don't necessarily call it a failure. This is why I have my one foot on the not a failure side of the fence. They needed this loss to look at themselves in the mirror, as TV said, to say, okay, all right, this is what we can do. We got to trim the fat. We got to get younger. We have to remain competitive because most of the teams in the NBA, the top tier teams in the NBA, have made adjustments to get younger, to improve their perimeter defense, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Milwaukee hasn't done much other than add aging stars. So that's my take on it.
Unless you're the Phoenix Suns, who are also not getting any younger. Thomas, what went wrong against Miami?
Yeah, you can obviously point towards the Giannis side they lost, and the fact that the defense, the number one defense in basketball, just could not stop a Miami Heat team who could not score in the regular season. But at the end of the day, they just caught Miami at the wrong time. For some reason, the Miami Heat, who lost by double digits to the Atlanta Hawks in the play-in game, who almost lost to the Chicago Bulls in the play-in game, just woke up and decided that, you know what, they are an elite team in this league. And it has a lot to do with Jimmy Butler just absolutely just being playoff Jimmy, where he looks pedestrian in the regular season, but then when the playoffs come around, he just turns into like a top 3 player in basketball. And not just that, everyone around him just started hitting shots. Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, Bam Adebayo was showing up near the end. Kyle Lowry finally was healthy and on the court. In the Miami Heat turning on the switch, and the Milwaukee Bucks missing Giannis, not having a fully fit Chris Middleton, and basically having the best player in the world, Jimmy Butler. It's just the worst timing for these two things to come right together, where Miami was finally rolling, and the Milwaukee Bucks, who again predicated their system on defense and trying to win by getting into passing lanes, winning with their length. They just couldn't do that against the Miami Heat, and they have one of the best guys to handle Jimmy Butler and Drew Holiday, and he wasn't able to do that. So I want to say, yeah, the Milwaukee Bucks, yeah, they were missing Giannis. They also caught the Miami Heat at probably the worst possible time that they did, and Jimmy Butler, just like he did last year, just absolutely killed them this year.
Same question, Blaine. Is it a case Giannis's injury, combination of factors, or there's something that we're missing?
I mean, I think Neil and TV kind of nailed it on the head. Like, honestly, I'll even take it on a further step. Like, you could make the argument that Miami was going to, the way Miami played, they were going to beat them with Giannis on the court. Like, the Milwaukee Bucks won game 2, and they had to play arguably their best offensive game all year to get one win. That's how dialed in the Miami Heat were for this in that series. And the Miami Heat were my dark horse at the beginning of the year to be the one team that no one in the Eastern Conference wanted to see, because like Neil nailed it on the head, like they are the most sound team in basketball, led by Riley, coached by Spo. You have that intangible leader and Jimmy Butler, and then I think people sleep on the addition that Kevin Love has actually been to this squad. Cleveland, he has been a huge plug-and-play guy for this squad with that championship mentality, him and Lowry. So this is something different. Like, you cannot argue, you can't confidently say the Milwaukee Bucks would have won that series if Giannis was on the court. Like, he gets hurt in game 1, right, in the first quarter. Miami outplayed them by 10 in that first quarter with Giannis on the court healthy before he had to leave the game. So there's still, and it's not like Miami Heat are at full strength too, guys. Like we mentioned, no Hero, no Oladipo. They're arguably their best 2 scoring players off the bench. And you can make the argument Tyler Hero is their second best option offensively on their team entirely. And he's been out this entire postseason as well. So you can't just fully say that the Giannis injury played a role. I think you can't argue that it doesn't, right? But you can't. I would confidently say if this series was with Giannis on the court, that Miami would probably still win this in 6 or 7 games. Like, that's how lights out Miami Heat are. And if you're a Celtics or Sixers, you are begging for the New York Knicks to make this a series. Because if Miami gets a lot more rest, and I have Miami winning in 5 in this series, like, they are the worst matchup in basketball for any of these top teams in the Eastern Conference, because they can play all 5 positions and switch all 5 positions and make living havoc.
Yep. Facts.
I'm with you, Blaine, right? Like, first, let me give the credit to the Heat, right? Like, y'all, all 3 of you said, it is a terrible matchup for any team. Like, if you're a top seed in the Eastern Conference, you probably don't want this team. I'm sure Milwaukee was hoping and praying for Chicago that they just beat in 5 games last year. And that being said, obviously, you would still expect them to win, right? Our good friend Larry always told me about this season with the Bucks that this is a flawed roster and a flawed situation that we're not seeing for what it was. So I said, maybe he's right. Let me delve into the numbers. And would you know, he's correct. And here are some numbers to prove that. The Bucks, I guess their situation were masked by that 2021 championship, like TV alluded to. Because would you know that the Bucks have played 65 fourth quarters in their 5 recent playoff runs. In those 780 minutes, guys, would you know that in those fourth quarters, they have been outscored by 76 points? That is basically a per minute. To that point, guys, the Miami Heat entering that playoff series lost 51 straight games, entering in games that they entered the fourth quarter with a double-digit lead. The Miami Heat closed out that series with 2 double-digit fourth quarter comebacks. Let me say that one more time.
Yeah.
The Miami Heat, entering that playoff series, lost 51 straight games when entering a fourth quarter with a double-digit lead, yet they closed out the Milwaukee Bucks with 2 fourth-quarter double-digit comebacks. There is more, gentlemen. The Milwaukee Bucks during the season were not even, despite having the best record, were not even in the top 10 in point differential. They were 11th. In terms of effective field goal percentage, they were 9th. Basically saying this was not an elite team, that they were winning games and finding ways to win. But as we know in the playoffs, you are going to be foamed out. The Miami Heat, as you all alluded to, were not good in the regular season in scoring. They were 27th in three-point percentage. Would you guys know that the Miami Heat shot 45% across the entire series from behind the arc? Not even from the field, from behind the arc. They had 4 straight games of shooting 40% or more from behind the arc to close out this Milwaukee Bucks team. This Milwaukee Bucks team has been dreadful, knowingly dreadful at defending the arc, because it's part of Coach Bud's philosophy to give up three-pointers at the risk of protecting the paint. We saw the situation, the reason that they're so bad in fourth quarters. Bud is not great at managing the clock, and he is not great in late game situations in terms of play calling and also calling timeouts. The whole situation with the Milwaukee Bucks was being masked by having the best player and having Chris Middleton for whatever stretches that he played, and Drew Holiday and Brook Lopez. This team has had problems for the last 5 years, and I guess in 2021, I don't want to call it a fluke or lucky championship because there's no such thing, but I think that championship in 2021 masked all their problems. And that is a perfect segue into the next topic, because reality of the situation, I don't think Bud was ever the man for the job, and 2021 basically saved him, because I suspect had they lost that finals,
He would have been
Bud
out.
would have been fired.
No doubt.
Mm-hmm.
So TV, do you agree with Bud being fired? And if so, who do you think his replacement should be?
It's bad circumstances for Coach Budenholzer. I mean, obviously, like during we did pass away due to a car accident too, which is highly unfortunate. But like it was alluded to, this was coming. This was coming that Coach Bud was going to be fired, and I remember even talking about it on my show a couple years ago, where the in-game adjustments and just in-series adjustments is just one of Bud's biggest flaws. He has a philosophy, he sticks to it, and it works out for the regular season because there's 82 games. When you stick to that philosophy, when you stick to that system, you're going to win a lot of games, especially with the talent they have on our roster. But when the playoffs come and you only have maximum 7 games to try and switch things around, he has proven time and time again that he is not able to make those adjustments. I mean, Jimmy Butler was killing Drew Holiday every single game. Did he send a double team? No. Did he decide to switch up the matchup? No, nothing. He did not have the ability to do that. And multiple fourth quarters, there was the game where they had 0.7 seconds left. They had a timeout. They can advance the ball, try and get a catch and shoot opportunity. Nothing. Not called timeout. He just inbounded the ball. Two timeouts in the overtime with your season on the line. No timeouts called whatsoever to stop the Miami Heat run. Just these little things that happen within these series. Coach Bud just feels like it's stubborn to a certain point where he just sticks to his philosophy and does not move away from it. He was literally inch away. His job was saved by the fact that Kevin Durant stepped on that line, because if that shot was even a little bit behind the line, that he would have been gone the next morning. He would have been gone. So that championship did save him. He is a very good X and O's coach. He is a good regular season coach, as seen with Atlanta as well. But when it comes to in-series adjustments, when you have just a certain amount of games to try and win a series, he hasn't been able to do that. And honestly, you mentioned as well the type of coach that can replace him. The complete opposite of that, and the Bucks know this firsthand. Nick Nurse to go to the Milwaukee Bucks. They witnessed him make some changes in that 2019 series into the conference finals where the Bucks were up 2-0. Nick Nurse decided to switch the series around, putting Kawhi Leonard on him, and that what ultimately led the Toronto Raptors to an NBA championship. So, in order for things to switch around, Nick Nurse has shown that he is good at coaching, really good with a lot of talent. I think he would be a great man to replace Budenholzer here.
Do you agree, Blaine? Should Nick Nurse come in? And are you comfortable with Budenholzer getting the boot 2 seasons after winning the Bucks championship?
So there's a couple of ways that I've looked at the Bud firing, right? I think the team needs a personnel change. So I think team-wise, so that's not a Bud issue. That's a higher up issue. That's a general manager issue, NBA executive stuff too. I think if Bud's getting the boot, they need to also look in the front office as well. Be like, this is you put the players in for a high scoring offense that suits Bud's playing style. And like you guys have already mentioned, like the man was on the hot seat going into that. Like everyone thought his head was going to come off after year 2, and they gave him that 3rd year on his deal and he won them a ring, right? So everyone thinks that Bud, I don't mind the firing. I think this was just a huge repercussion of what you have to think about. How do you keep Giannis Antetokounmpo on the squad? Because there's a lot of turmoil kind of going through Milwaukee right now. The owner just sold that his stake. Is he seeing something, some writings on the wall that we haven't seen before they lost this series? That's starting to plug and play, right? But I think I wouldn't go Nick Nurse. I think Nick is a great candidate for the job, and he's definitely going to get a warranted opportunity. But I actually would go in a couple of assistants directions. I would go I'll go with the guy that just beat you, right? Go take him out of the SPO and Pat Riley tree. Go get the Heat assistant, Chris Quinn, bring him in. You need some intensity in that squad. The team is way too finesse, and the team that just beat you is all about the intangibles and playing nitty-gritty style ball. Like Milwaukee needs wing defenders. Like that's their biggest need. I know that's a question for another segment, but you need to bring in someone that's going to instill toughness into their squad. If you don't go with Chris Quinn, another opportunity is that you go like with, well, I'm trying to think right now off the top of my head. Who's the other assistant that was in my head? Oh, maybe not Nurse. Maybe go with his assistant, Adrian Griffin. Just similar mindsets, but not with Nurse. You don't know if Nurse is going to want to get right back into basketball. Those are a couple of guys that I see because the team cannot go offense again. The team's been going offense way too much, and you can see that it's failing them. The team needs to get back to what Milwaukee basketball really standed for, and that was being a nitty-gritty squad playing defense.
Should really be representing the state. Neil, are you comfortable with Bud being shown the door? And if so, anybody but Frank Vogel, right?
Anybody but Frank Vogel. That's a personal dig to the Laker fan. We'll allow it. So yes, I do agree that Bud should have been fired, right? When you look at his 5 seasons with the Milwaukee Bucks, they had the best record in the NBA regular season record in the NBA of all the teams. They had the best record, and they were ousted in some weird rounds, right? TV hit it right on the head. They were 3 inches away from Bud losing his job in that championship season, right? Kevin Durant stepping on that lane. So yeah, the Milwaukee. There's no question that the Milwaukee Bucks is a good team. The talent is there. That is without question. But as both TV and Blaine said, he makes poor decisions when it matters in a 7-game series. In an 82-game series, he has a philosophy, as TV says, he sticks to it. But when he gets in a 7-game series, we all know that you have to shorten your bench, you have to make adjustments, you have to, and that's from game to game now, because you're playing the same opponent for almost like a week and a half. You have to be dialed in and attuned to what they're doing and take it away from them and get the right personnel in there to do the job. So who may be balling in the first series in the first round may not be a person you look at in the second or third round. So he struggles at making those adjustments. It's almost like he has the recipe and he doesn't even want to add a pinch of salt or take out a bit of sugar. He just goes by this recipe and says, they call for 4 eggs. I'm going to put 4 eggs, right? But, you know, but going is, I don't have a problem with that. I know a lot of people who don't follow the NBA as closely as we do would look at it and say, oh, but he just won a championship 2 years ago and oh, blah, 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 blah. But when you really look at the whole stint of Budenholzer and you see that, they were top 3 team at the very worst in his stint there. This was the best, if not one of the best teams in a 5-year stretch. So why are there not more championships, especially when you have Giannis Antetokounmpo and other players getting older, right? I love what Blaine said about the front office. I think that needs to be reiterated as well, because this team has not really changed in the last 5 years. This team is the same team. Granted, it's a great regular season team. Granted, it on paper, it looks like it should go all the way to the finals and eventually a championship. But you could have given Budenholzer a little bit of help by, you know, making a move here and there that would have made it. I understand they probably want to die on the hill of Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton, but so be it. In terms of replacement coach, I actually do like the Nick Nurse thought process. Because when I again, before the show, we were trying to think of coaches that are available that would really fit the philosophy or be able to handle the talent and manage, although they're not really egos, but we're talking about superstars, so and millionaires. So you still have to still need somebody to manage egos as well. And there are not very many people that you can find to do that. Unfortunately, Ime might have been a good choice, but he is gone. If they could have gotten somebody from the Popovich tree, or TV was talking about from the sport tree. Not TV. Blaine was talking about from the sport tree. That would have been good. But the Nick Nurse hiring made sense. Like when you look at Milwaukee versus that Toronto team that won the championship, and some of the years that they had, I think Nick Nurse would be a good. He manages egos well. He manages time well. He does adjust to series, right? He is a coach you would want in the playoffs. Regular season, you don't have to worry about the Milwaukee Bucks in the regular season. I don't want to say it, but they can almost coach themselves because they're that good behind Giannis Antetokounmpo. But along with some minor tweaks and changes to that roster, being a little younger and kind of taking a page out of Miami to be a kind of team that can adjust any which way and rotate and play any position really well, defend position really well. I think a Nick Nurse hiring would be really good because he's a good all-around coach. He's a likable guy. He's a guy that, you can see he has a rapport with the players. He has an open door policy. You can see he's willing to be open-minded when it comes to philosophy. You can see that he is not afraid to take risks, even though sometimes his risks do go a little haywire. But I think Nick Nurse would be a good hiring. No, I am not a GM. I don't know if that would make sense, but who knows?
And just to hold on, Justin, before you go, I just want to piggyback on something that Neil kind of nailed on the head. Is that, especially in the regular season, guys, in the NBA, effort wins games. Like, effort wins games. Look at the Milwaukee Bucks in recent history. Look at the New York Knicks 2 out of the last 3 years. Effort gets you into the postseason, but it may not be the recipe that gets you over the hump when it really matters. Look at the Miami Heat. They kind of just limped their way in. They were just like, get us in the door and we'll show you what we're actually all about.
Yep.
So that's the perspective, especially with the NBA. Like, regular season kind of has gotten, people have taken their foot off the gas. Look at the Lakers and Warriors as well. 2 teams that are at the bottom end of the Western Conference, but they both knocked out the 2 higher seeds. So 2 teams that prided themselves on the regular season in Memphis and Sacramento. So you got to look at it at that perspective too.
That's a great take.
I completely agree. No, I thought that Ime Udoka did not wait long enough for, the playoffs to completely unfold, because I figured he would be a prime candidate, especially if my Suns lose in the second round. Like, that's get Devin Booker and Kevin Durant or the same Milwaukee team. But I also have to remember that also have to remember that culture does matter a lot in these things, and I can tell you, in a place like Wisconsin, conservative Midwest, I am not sure they would have hired somebody like Ime Udoka, considering the scandal that has followed his name since his departure from Boston. So I like the two candidates that y'all threw out in terms of Adrian Griffin, but more so Chris Quinn, because I think he kind of fits the ethos of Milwaukee more so than any possible candidate out there. I think the city will love and approach his, or grow to love his approach to basketball, that nitty gritty, and also understanding the importance of shooting the three, even though no one shoots more threes than Milwaukee during the time under Budenholzer. Now to Budenholzer. I think I kind of laid out all the reasons prior to why he had to be fired. The first thing, the simple, resolution to this is that heads had to roll after this. Like, you don't have this and nobody not lose their job. You're not going to get rid of Giannis Antetokounmpo, arguably the best player in basketball. Obviously, like, you don't do that. Ownership situation, like Blaine mentioned, is right now in flux. So somebody had to pay for their life for this, and it just was so happened to be Budenholzer because he was the easy scapegoat. Not saying he didn't deserve to lose his job, because as I mentioned, as y'all so eloquently put it, he is not the best, if not the worst, at possibly making in-series adjustments. Let's look at the situation with Jimmy Butler. Like, as great as I think Drew Holiday is as a perimeter defender, the problem is it was not working against Jimmy Butler. So at no point did you think you should try and put Giannis on him, keep Wes Matthews on the court for longer stretches because he's a bigger body, or even double team him. Like, Bud decided, I'm going down with this philosophy. And then, as we all know, Bud's philosophy of giving up threes at the sake of protecting the rim. Like, that's all good for certain teams, but against Miami Heat, the Miami Heat wants to shoot threes. That's what their role players do. Like Jimmy Butler, not so much. But Kyle Lowry, I know Tyler Hero didn't play, but when you look at Strus, Vincent, and all the others, like, these are 3-point shooters. Duncan Robinson, that's what the Miami Heat's coming to do. Like, that's what they are not the most talented roster, so they have to rely on ball movement and shooting threes. And Bud played right into that team's hands. And then again, clock management, especially towards the bottom half of games in the fourth quarter. Like I showed you the numbers. In 780 minutes over the last 5 playoff runs, this team has been outscored by 76 points by their opponents. And most of these opponents are lower seeded opponents. Like, it's clear that Bud was just not the guy for postseason basketball or postseason success. I like Chris Quinn to take over, but we'll see how this goes. So, go ahead, Thomas. Oh, you look like you were saying something.
No.
Well, if no one else, has anything else to add, I'll go to the next part, and I'll start with you, Blaine. Considering that, this was a failure by at least 3 of the 4 here on the panel, we got rid of the coach, but there are other moves I'm guessing Milwaukee has to make. What do you think those moves should be or will be?
I mean, it's hard, right? Like, this team was the oldest team in basketball. You would think the quick answer would be try and run it back again, but you've seen in recent history that's not what they can do with this squad in the last 5 years. They're a regular season squad, and they've only produced once in the postseason, and Giannis had to play out of his mind for them to hoist a championship. So where do you go from here? Grayson Allen can't defend, right? So you need wing defenders, like young wing defenders. Like, you can't be bringing in these wily old veterans and making this team older. Like, I think you might have to let Brook Lopez walk. That's my first thing. Brook Lopez has to walk. He's going to be 35. He's not much of a defensive force than he used to be. He's more of just a stretch 5 now. He's not much of a guy in the post anymore. Then what do you do with Chris Middleton? If Chris Middleton opts out, do you hold the money? That's a real question that you have to consider. He's on that player option. If I'm Chris Middleton, I opt in because they barely played this year, so your value is already going down in and of itself. So if you're Chris Middleton, you opt in. So let's say Middleton comes back and does the opt back in, because if he opts out, I think his value is going to be diminished in Milwaukee. I have a couple of guys that I really think they need to go out and chase. First one for me, go get Cam Johnson from Brooklyn. Man's a 3-and-D guy. He's young. He's got the ability still. He can guard 4 out of the 5 positions, arguably, with his length. He's a fair 3-point shooter, which really gives them, but he's an athletic wing defender. He's the first guy I would try and bring in if you're them. Next, I got to scroll down. This list gets longer and longer as I'm scrolling through, so I apologize. But I think you go another wing defender route. I really like if you go. Well, I'm trying to find him here. Maybe even if you go after Josh Hart, if he opts out from New York, I don't think he will personally, but that's one that you go after. And then another one that I really like is you go after Bruce Brown if he opts out. Those are just a couple of the guys that if they opt out, they're going to be really hungry and trying to make an impact. And I really like those, but 2 out of the 3 are player options. But if that doesn't work out, maybe even go after a Matisse Thybulle. You know his offense is very much a struggle, and that's an understatement. But the man will lock down the best player on the other side of the court.
So for backdrop to this, sorry I did not give it at the start of the segment. Chris Middleton is 32 with a player option. Brook Lopez is 35 and a free agent. And Drew Holiday is also 32 and extension eligible next season. So, Thomas, we all mentioned how old this team is. What do they do going into next season?
I mean, like logically, going younger while maintaining the championship core is the goal, but it's easier said than done. You have a lot of, like you mentioned, a lot of have very few years left on their contract, so it's going to be harder to trade them for some very key pieces. But if there's one thing that the Bucks should continue to do, and I think they did this with the Drew Holiday trade, is to be aggressive. You have a player like Giannis Antetokounmpo, you got to be aggressive on the market. And maybe it's not through free agency. The free agency class this year looks kind of dull, kind of weak in terms of that sense. So you might want to maybe look for the next disgruntled star. I know that defense should be the identity of this team, but let's be honest, they don't have a creative guy on the perimeter. They don't have that creative guy on the perimeter like they had in Chris Middleton that 1 year. So potentially some guys that might ask out, Zach LaVine, maybe try to pull out some trade piece for Zach LaVine if the Bulls decide up. That's really shooting high, but potentially you could go with that. I would like to monitor the Atlanta Hawks situation. Maybe things kind of go south again next year, and they want to try to get a DeJounte Murray after that failed experiment. Who knows what could happen with that? Or if you really want to shoot for the stars, Jaylen Brown. If Jaylen Brown loses in this series to the Philadelphia 76ers, and after all the reports coming from his camp saying that he's not a fan of the opportunities he's getting, he feels like he's not as valued by the Boston Celtics organization. Those are some situations you might want to monitor, because those are some wings that can really be a game changer and can complement Giannis very well. Someone who is reckless in the paint, can really dominate from the inside. Jaylen Brown, Zach LaVine, and potentially DeJounte Murray can really be differences out on the perimeter.
Jaylen needs to take more than 4
When
shots
you said
first, though, in the fourth.
Yes, please.
When you said monitor a situation, I thought you were about to say someplace out west, like a Portland. I was hoping you may have thrown that out there.
He's not leaving, bro. He's never gonna
to
leave
Portland now.
Never.
I heard Kevin Garnett say that too, but hey, whatever. So Neil, aging roster, new coach, new ownership. What does Milwaukee need to do next season?
Well, again, sound like I piggybacking off these two guys. They've said it pretty good, but again, I might spin on it. Just like Blaine said, you got to kind of deal with the free agency situation first, right? You have some key free agents there so that are getting older, because the goal should be to get younger and to bolster defense, as Blaine suggested. So I would definitely look at Brook Lopez. I know Jay Crowder, somebody somewhere down there knocking about. You have I brought that just for you, but you do have some pieces that you need to look at to go. I love the suggestion that TV made. Matisse Thybulle here was looking at him too. I was saying if you can, wrestle him away as part of your semi rebuild, that'd be great because he can play great perimeter defense. And I love how TV was saying they could act as a vulture as well and pick the dead carcass of the Bulls because I don't even think it's a should or if is an inevitability that they're going to blow it up. But in all seriousness, I think they need to look at getting younger, one, and two, bolstering their perimeter both on offense and defense. I think that having Giannis is Giannis. Anybody named Antetokounmpo should stay on that squad. Yes, I mean even the Nassis, he should stay too. No.
Oh,
If
wow.
you want to hold on, you want to keep Giannis happy? You would keep that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that boy don't.
You sign every brother.
Every brother, I'd sign all, right? But basically,
I am telling you, right? I had the luxury of watching Alex in the G League, right? And he is arguably the worst player in
You
the
can't
G
say
League.
that. You can't say that as a Milwaukee native. You can't do that.
it's terrible. I hope
I
the
can because I
hope the municipal governance
have the also
of Milwaukee just watching this and revoke your Wisconsinite status. Just say, you know what?
I have the inside
Go to Iowa or
information
someplace.
that says, oh no, but I have good inside information that states that it came from the NBA, and I don't have to tell you who when I say that Alex on the G League team has to at least get a minimum of 20 minutes per game, right? And I don't have to tell you where that mandate came from, but it came down from the Bucks that this kid got to get 20 minutes per game, and they can tell you he does not deserve 5. Continue.
You can get that right. So to me, Giannis is whatever. I think the Chris Middleton experiment. I think they should critically look at that because at the end of the day, you need a not superstar, but you need a star that should anything happen to Giannis, like this situation, you can kind of stem the tide until Giannis comes back, right? It could be Chris Middleton, another star, a la Zach LaVine, or a combination of players to make up that star. But you need to look at that defensive perimeter. You need that. I think with Giannis. Nick Vucevic, who is also, on that rotting Bulls. I'm just saying TV is onto something about picking the dead carcass of the Bulls. No, Nick Vucevic, the thing about...
that's a party. That's a party carcass that they need to leave in Chicago.
No. But hear me out now. Hear me out now, guys. Nick Vucevic is kind of like Brook Lopez. It's kind of like Brook Lopez. We're not looking for the potential of...
One person protects the paint, though.
But that's all right. But the thing is, if you got Bobby Portis and you can get another center knocking about somewhere or power forward, a big guy that can challenge the ring, you just want to you could keep Brook Lopez and somehow try to get Vucevic somewhere about there. But the thing about it is you need to somehow, and the thing is, Milwaukee can't do it. They just got to trim the fat and get rid of some of that dead weight, right? Wes Matthews, he needs to go, right? Grayson Allen, I think it was Blaine that mentioned it. He needs to go, right? You need to start trimming the fat and the dead weight of the Milwaukee Bucks and look at some players that can facilitate both offense and defense. If you could find that both in one player, that's great, or a couple of players, that's great. But you have Josh Hart out there who's becoming a free agent. No, Josh Hart is inconsistent at best, but to me, he's somebody that he may help in a playoff series. Even if you need one game for him to go off for 20 points, that may help, right? You got Seth Curry. I guess the name Curry does hold favor, sure. But you do have players out there that you can seriously look at, that you can kind of bring in. And I think it has to kind of start at the perimeter for some reason, because Drew Holiday looked overwhelmed and he looked as though he was incapable of doing it. It's almost like he was supposed to stop the point guard or match up defensively with their primary ball handler for the Miami Heat or anybody that's coming down. That's a lot asking for him as he gets older. So I think that it could be done. TV did say that this free agent year looks a bit, weak. I mean, unless you're planning to bet the farm and go and get Kyrie. I think that you're gonna have to look for a combination of a few players, and you're gonna have to really look to get younger. Consider going a bit smaller too. You know what I mean? Like it's worked for Miami. You have Brook Lopez who's 108. You have the carcass of Miles Leonard out there too. Like you got a lot of old players out there, a lot of tall players out there that ain't really serving the purpose. Get a 6'8", 6'9" guy that can, that kid from Detroit is also a free agent. I just saw his name too. Oh my gosh, names are failing me. But yeah, there's a kid from Detroit too who's pretty good for what they would need. Where is he now? I forget it. Can't find him now. But yeah, find somebody that's like 6'8", 6'9" that could block at the paint and give some intensity. You're not looking for a Giannis, or you're not looking for somebody to give you 25 and 12. You're looking for somebody that can come in their 10 minutes, do what they have to do, and go out. And if they become a specialty player where you need to have a rotation on a big or anything like that, or somebody that can run out to the perimeter to kind of, stall up their offense and run back. Like you need players that have that hustle mentality that the Bucks already have, but also can bring those intangibles like you're seeing, as Blaine said earlier in the segment. I love that hustle players get you into the playoffs, right? So maintain that hustle, but you still need to bolster the talent both on offense and defense. And this is a young man's league now, so you gotta be able to get up and down the court.
So I wish that TV was talking about looking in Portland, because somebody did go, a named person did go on a podcast, and he was asked if there is one player, superstar, that he would like to team up with before his time was done in the NBA. He did say Giannis. Now, granted, it was just for funsies, as we'd say, and the unfortunate situation is that Milwaukee does not have any draft capital to send to Portland for Damian Lillard, because all of that draft capital was taken up in the Jrue Holiday trade.
The only way Damian Lillard will end up in Milwaukee is if he's kidnapped.
Or when the Trailblazers have to play Bucks in that one road game a year. But yeah, you start there, but you don't have the draft capital, and no one trades players for superstars anymore. People want the draft capital. So I guess obviously Damian Lillard is out of the question. I saw this report. I can't remember where it was. And I would like to credit the people properly, but I really can't remember it was. And someone was making an argument that if Middleton opts in, that you actually move on for Chris Middleton, and you trade Chris Middleton to Houston for Jalen Green, because it is clear that Houston, like TV said, wants to have this rebuild quickly. Now, again, I don't know how much this improves your roster. Like, you're worse off defensively, but you do have athleticism. You do get faster, get younger. I just don't know if that is an improvement on your roster. You may have to let Brook Lopez walk. And unfortunately, I am a huge fan of Brook Lopez. Huge fan. But you may need a cap space, and I don't know what you're going to use the cap space to sign, but you may have to let Brook Lopez walk. Like Blaine said, because Middleton was hurt, he had a good playoff series against the Heat, but because he was hurt for a lot of the season, Middleton is probably going to opt in because the market would have cooled on him. I feel that your only tradable asset right now is Middleton opting into that contract, because Brook Lopez is a free agent, can't trade that. Bobby Portis' contract is such that, well, he's a good player and a $6-man-a-year candidate. I don't know any team who is going to want to take Bobby Portis at that money, and also Jrue Holiday's contract as well. It's going to be tough. So your only trade piece is Chris Middleton, but Chris Middleton also serves as your second best player. So I want to say I don't know what moves that this Milwaukee team can make other than watching Brook Lopez leaving free agency and use that cap room to sign somebody, and I don't know who you will sign. So quickly, guys, as we try to get out of here, I'll let y'all fire off whichever round or whichever direction y'all want to go in, and whoever wants to start first. That being said, is Milwaukee still a title contender?
Giannis Antetokounmpo still on your team?
Yep.
Well, yes.
Yes,
Okay.
because nail on the head. You've got arguably one of the top 3 players in basketball. You're always going to have a chance, technically.
Tomas?
Yeah, they're still contenders. Even if they don't make any changes, everyone comes back. It's still a good enough roster. We've seen that they're able to regular season. Maybe the coaching change would just, switch things up enough where they have a different voice in the locker room. They still have the pieces there. They're still contenders.
Neil said it easily. I'll be honest, Antetokounmpo, arguably the best player in basketball. I can't see a scenario where you have the best player in basketball and your team is not a title contender. Well, that made it easy. Time to get up out of here. Blaine, plug yourself. Tell folks what you got coming up next. How to find you.
Yeah, absolutely. Justin, always a pleasure. Thank you, you and Neil, for having me. TV, always great seeing you, my guy. You can catch the Final Whistle Sports Podcast on Instagram and TikTok at thefinal.whistle, Facebook Final Whistle Sports Pod. I'm on YouTube, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, you name it. We're pretty much on it. My co-host and I, Joe, we kind of took a bit of a hiatus for about a month and a half. Work kind of took over, and then we both went on a little bit of a mini vacay. So we just recorded our second episode back yesterday. So watch out for that to be dropped tomorrow. It's going to be more of a deep dive into the NBA. We're kind of looking at every little series, and we kind of went into a little bit of a heated debate to wrap up of what is the best playoff sport to watch.
We all come up with that.
Nothing's better than playoff hockey to me, man. It's not even close. You watch playoff hockey,
Fair.
It is something to behold. You cannot leave the screen. Otherwise, you have missed something.
I can't argue with that. I'm with you 100% there. Tomas, same thing. Plug yourself, buddy.
Of course. Thank you again, Justin, Neil, for having me on the show again. Nice seeing Blaine again. It was awesome. It's always great having it be on the show with him as well. You can find me at TV on Basketball, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff. But my side project, the Hit Your Free Throws podcast with myself and Jalen, that's been pretty popping off. We release episodes every week, sometimes twice a week. We just recorded another episode today, going through the NBA, and one of the main topics was, would you rather have Jordan Poole or this other NBA player, especially on the contract that he has right now and the way that he's playing? That's good. It became a really fun debate over there. So we're going to be releasing that episode tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. And you can find the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all the good stuff, all the daily content as well. It's really popping up over there.
The other NBA player as well, who I'm going to
Yeah.
As a
Warriors fan right now, Jordan Poole is at the top of my hit list right now.
And I've told you all that contract is going to look by very quickly, but didn't take very long to find out. For y'all who don't know, this is not the only thing Neil does. Far from. So Neil, right ahead.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Again, glad to see Blaine on TV. Always a pleasure to talk basketball. And thank you, Justin, for letting me out of the basement, the production pit that you always have me locked in. But I have another podcast. I have the Senate podcast, where this has nothing to do with sports, but it talks about life, love, and relationships from the perspective of men. Myself, Derek Marshall, we speak, obviously, Caribbean men, Black men. We speak about it from that perspective. But of course, any man can watch it, because the issues we have as men, it transcends whatever you identify as. We going through it. So you can check us out every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Barbados time. I don't know the American time. Sorry about that. And then, of course, we do have some other content on there too. Some Senate shorts that we do. They come every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So you can check us out. We hit some milestones this year, and we had a conference, a first ever conference, King's Gathering, where we had a group of men network and talk about stuff, mental health, finances, legal protection, and a bit of legacy and history as well. So it was really good. People loved it. We're looking to put on another one, hopefully in the next quarter. But yeah, check out the Senate Podcast. We are the Senate Podcast every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Barbados time.
And TV thought I forgot about him, but I told him at the start of this season that Devin Booker is a top 10 player, and he gave me a look.
Hey.
What can you
Man,
say now?
I thought this was a Milwaukee episode. That's what I thought. I thought we were talking about Milwaukee. What are we talking about?
Suns
What are we
hoodie
talking
on
about?
right
Yeah.
now,
What are we
so-
talking about? Like, I ain't got Laker jerseys to put on.
Justin, was it? Justin, just watch the next episode. We talk all about Devin Booker a lot, so you can see.
Man's been
You'll hear all of that.
man.
Oh,
I will superhuman. But obviously, people, honestly, people, go watch or go subscribe, go follow the Senate Podcast, the Final Whistle, Hit Your Free Throws Podcast, and also TV on Basketball. All great follows. I am not going to steer you wrong. Please go follow, go like, go subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. You can go find those guys. And then when you are done, come back here, like, follow, subscribe. We are on every Monday night. We are primarily on YouTube. That's Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, also 8 p.m. in the Caribbean. For our short form content, you can find us on Instagram, on Facebook, and Twitter. That is #ThisJustIn. Please put in the hashtag. You do not want Matt Skellerman. You want us right here. So for Neil, for Blaine, for TV, I am indeed Justin of #ThisJustIn signing out. See y'all next week, and hopefully the Suns in the Western Conference Finals.
I don't wish bad, man.
I know that after tonight, you don't have to look up at the stars. No. I
Come
know.
take a look at my
Again,
dream
that
world.
Tonight, you don't have to look up at the stars.
Chat, if you wanna come get it, then come for it. I'm so clean, my kick's nice, I'm Chuck Norris. Minute made the beat bounce, had to jump on it. Run for it, run, Gump Forrest Gump like hollow pumps, you gotta jump. No trouble, no double, I got a stun. You don't have to look up at the stars. Make one wish, you're looking at a star. Swag so fresh, you can put it in the jar.